All right, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining the Kappa reading group. So today I want to present, but it's mainly some notes that I took yesterday from some quick readings of literature on ideation. The reason for that is because, there is this significant deadline. We are now trying to wrap up an old project that we did related to ideation, mainly related to idea assessment. So I, took this chance to also refresh my memory a bit on this topic. So, as I was saying, right, what we are now currently doing is idea evaluation, which is a very challenging task. Here is a post that I took from Wired that tells a story of Google's initiative, right, as a gift for its own anniversary. In the end, this gift didn't really, wasn't really realized. So it's a fun story, fun for us, but not for Google. So um, what Google was doing was that, um, it has a campaign that asks anybody, right, uh, to come up with ideas to address, to solve any problems, basically. And then they give this they have this budget of 10 millions for the best 5 ideas. The number has a nice meaning. But then what came out afterwards was that, it took 8 months. Actually, it took more than 8 months for Google to really identify what are the best ideas. And I don't think there was any following up actions on this. So you can check online. I might have not done enough search, but you can check. So basically, it's a real life story that says, oh, you know what? It might be easy to come up with ideas, but it's relatively difficult to assess those ideas. And this is one story that we were paying attention to in the project. Um, Now, let me give some background information on ideation. So here I quote some text from Wikipedia. As you can see right here, I highlight some words. So ideation is a creative process of generating, developing, communicating ideas, blah, 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 blah. And then ideation can be conducted by individuals, organizations, or crowds. So it can be a social process that involves a group of people. That might be more relevant for us here. And what's interesting that I find is that ideation usually is seen as a step of the design process. And we have some friends from design here. So this is also to connect a bit to your background. So this is what I found from Wikipedia. I also cite I quote a definition from literature as well. So the most cited definition of ideation from literature is given by Gonsalves. So what he said is that ideation is a process of generating, curating original, useful ideas so as to define and explore what is desirable in a design project. So you can see the context here is again about design, right? And it also describes some desirable properties of what we call a good idea, right? It should be original, useful, and desirable. Um, yeah, and the actions that are involved in this process is basically, define what ideas could be and explore, right? So this I will talk more about it in a few slides. So how do we ideate? And as I pointed out earlier, right, there's a close relation between ideation and design or design thinking. There's a famous book by Tim Brown on this topic, He also pointed out the similar desired properties of ideation, right? Desirability, feasibility, and viability. Viability is, it might look close to feasibility, but it emphasizes more the long-term success. And then from Tim Brown, you can see that the activity of ideation is a part of the design thinking process that comprises two other more steps, right? Inspiration before ideation and implementation afterwards. And ideation by itself is defined as generating, developing, testing ideas. You can see some slight some slight differences, some overlap across those different definitions. I think that's normal. People have different views, but I think in general the idea of ideation should be clear. And I also quote some text specifically about human-centered design from Wikipedia. Um, well, a lot of the design are human-centered, right? So, and with this human-centered design, I'm particularly interested in this topic because we do human-centered AI. Huh? There's a reason why I took this snips from Wikipedia. So here you can see that, human-centered design is basically to involve humans at different stages of the design process, right? And then human involvement takes place in different steps of the design process: observing, brainstorming, conceptualizing, developing, and implementing. We can map this to design thinking, I think. So here we would have observing, brainstorming, and conceptualizing. I think more related to inspiration and ideation. Correct me if I'm wrong, huh? especially uh, uh, especially Miria, because you have the background. Huh? Yeah. So I just want to put something together. I can maybe you will find that some of the things that I talk about here could be useful for your research. So if so, you can simply well well, take a look again at the slides. And this is also for myself to take notes. So now here, what we have talked about so far is what is ideation, right? How it is defined. But then, how should we do that? Um, there are different angles that people take in characterizing how the process of ideation look like. One angle that people take is, well, what kind of how do I say thinking? Okay, let me maybe simply read this sentence out. So there is this general process that involves two different types of thinking. One called the divergent thinking, which is basically to explore, right, the different ideas or solutions, and then convergent thinking, which aims at reconciling those ideas to the ones that we think is good, those different dimensions that we talked about earlier in terms of measuring the goodness. Um, Now, there's another point given by Hugh that who said that, well, ideation can be performed by either individuals or groups, and in general, groups are better. eh? So this actually make this topic of ideation very close to the uh, sub-community of HCI, basically this collaborative work, computer-supported collaborative work. If you think about the venue, it would be this CSCW, right? So ideation is a group activity, or it can be a group activity. And then in terms of what can help with ideation, right? People find that usually, there are different things that can help, and in general, the visual material that I consider as most helpful. Uh, I'm going to also present one paper very soon, which does not really look at visual materials, but just some abstract concepts, right? And you can see that it is already quite useful. So to help with the ideation, we can leverage some external knowledge or information outside um, our mind, right? Outside the minds of the groups, for example. we can connect us to the knowledge base, um, external knowledge base. Okay, so here is another view to how ideation can be done. And this view basically extends the previous point of, well, ideation usually involves iterations between the, what is it, divergent and convergent thinking, right? That was what was introduced here. And then there was another view to this process, which add another step called abduction. So basically, it involves these three different steps, right? The first step is called a generalized induction, or it's very similar to the divergent thinking, right? Like to explore as many solutions as possible, basically to collect, right? Explore and collect, identify what's relevant. And then this deduction process is basically to reconcile, right? We want to find the ones that are most useful for certain, for example, context. Uh, and to do that, we can use deductive reasoning, right? This is similar to convergent thinking according to the authors. But in addition to this, what they also propose is that, oh, you know what? In order to generate a truly new ideas, there is also this process called this step called abduction. Basically, um, mm, basically it infers, right, from the existing solutions or ideas some new ones. Uh, it's actually very much related to the concept of explanation, right? To infer from what we observed to something that can best explain those observations. So, and then here, I think what it means is go from some existing, some ideas that we know already to some, well, truly new ideas. I don't know how exactly it is done, but I just want to share this view. Um, okay, now I want to also go through a paper. It's actually a short one, but it's very well known apparently in this area. So the title of the paper, actually, there's the tool that those authors developed is called the inspiration wall. Um, so in terms of scope, it focuses on collaborative idea generation, basically, having a group of people talking to each other, potentially also helped by some knowledge sharing activities or some knowledge bases materials to spark more well creative ideas. Well, the whole idea of this inspiration wall is very simple. Uh, you can see that it basically what it looks at is a scenario of two people talking to each other, and then they have a microphone that records the conversation. And based on the recorded voice, followed by a transcription to the text, the tool, the inspiration wall, right? The system, what it does is that it links to some external knowledge base and then identify the concepts that are relevant to this conversation. Yeah? And there is some interesting fancy ranking algorithm to identify what's most relevant. But then the whole point here is to expand the current context of what's being discussed, right? By retrieving something new from the knowledge base. And then what they do is that they have a black screen and simply put those concepts on the screen. And of course, this is dynamic, right? There's a flow of conversation, and then those new concepts will be generated. So what they did was that they show the concepts, and then the concepts will basically drop from top to bottom over time when it's getting less and less relevant, right? So this is what they did. So I think it's a simple idea, but seems that it's working well. Um, okay, now the following slides are basically a replication of what I just said, but to give you a little bit more information, what's this inspiration wall helps is is what they call information exploration, right? To expand the current context by suggesting new related concepts. And you know what? Uh, it has actually some foundation that you can find in, I think, cognitive science. Basically, what they say is that human memory, first of all, right, what's inside our brain, right? Human memory has a semantic network structure where there are concepts and links between those concepts. Yeah? And then the ability of collecting and navigating these concepts is very important in the creative process. Um, and in that case, it's not only useful that we're good at retrieving those things in our own mind, in our own brain, right? But also, if we can be helped by some external information, that would also be useful. This is exactly what this inspiration war is grounded. What that idea is grounded. And what they do again is inspiration war, right? What they do again is automatic retrieval and display of concepts related to a conversation by speech recognition and information exploration. Uh, yeah, I think this already described. This is how it works. Uh, by the way, potentially there can also be image, right, instead of just simple text. But actually, there are also some relevant work that looks at the helpfulness of visual images as well. And this is a setup. Sorry. So there are some specific techniques that they use. For example, well, the microphone. There's this in order to do speech recognition, they use some Google's speech recognition API. If it's still something that can be used now, right? We can, and if we find this useful, we can also consider this in any of the projects that are relevant. And then they look at the knowledge graphs, use some entity-based keyword search. This is related to information retrieval. Right? A lot of people here are doing research related to that. Um, and then visualization, right? They have this simple strategy of the keywords that are newly found, right? To put them on the top of the screen and then slowly drop down to the bottom. Um, some quick introduction to how they validated the ideas. So what they did is they recruited 6 pairs of participants, um, and then they do this within group setting, right? With or without inspiration wall. And then for different groups, it's the order is randomized, right? We start with the task with or without inspiration wall, right? This order is randomized. And then this is a hypothetical scenario that they consider in this task. Basically, it asks the participant to come up with some students' project on certain topic, and then this idea needed to have to include, for example, some technologies, interaction techniques. I don't know. Um, 2 topics: robotics and wearable computing. I think this is a very design, very design type of project. Okay, so results. What they find is that first of all, with this help of inspiration wall, they saw that the participant can come up with more ideas. It's not the same observation from all different pairs of participants, but they find that those who, well, did look at inspiration wall, for example, this group, and this group, they can generate more ideas. And in order to identify who is looking at the inspiration wall, they used some camera. So some interesting ideas. And then they also used a specific method that allows to evaluate how useful, right, some tool is in supporting the creative activities. This is called the Creativity Support Index. It contains, some questions that measures that measures the six factors. Well, if you're interested, to go and take a look. Apparently, there is something like that that you can use if you want to evaluate new methods or tools to support creativity. Okay. Yeah, as I mentioned, this is one work that only considers displaying some concepts, right, in textual forms. There are also some other work that explores visual stimuli, right? Basically, those, for example, images. Um, uh, Maybe this is relevant to Lorenzo because Lorenzo and Garrett, I think, because you are now working on something somehow related, right? So potentially you can go and take a look. Okay, this is the end of my presentation. Thank you for bearing with my, broken voice. Are there any questions or discussions that you'd like to have?